knowing that you came, let's just say you came to the end of this journey called life, and the grades come out, and you got a 52%.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
Okay, so there's no such a thing as any Jewish soul. The DNA of a Jewish soul, every single Jewish soul is wired for greatness. Okay, every single one wants to reach their proverbial potential. So let's start off with a story that I think illustrates this point. It was 1977, I believe. 63 years old, Laura Schultz. So Laura Schultz was on the second floor of like a two-story home. And out of her peripheral vision, she saw that her car in the driveway was slowly going backwards. Here's the problem, there was no one in the car. 10 seconds later, she heard this horrific scream. She peeked outside the window, and she saw her grandchild pinned underneath the car. By the way, everything I'm saying tonight, you can snoop, whatever, everything is based on, it's true. So you can Google, I'll never get up and say anything that I haven't checked 50 times, okay? 63 years old, second floor, huge Cadillac, reversed. Her grandchild is pinned underneath this huge Cadillac. She spiraled down the stairs. She comes to this huge Cadillac. Again, 63-year-old woman. She lifts up the car and saves her grandchild's life. Unbelievable, no? Yeah. Weeks pass, months pass. The press are calling, the media, the journalists. This is unbelievable. 63-year-old, I can see it right now. Wall Street Journal, 63-year-old woman saves the life of her grandchild. She wouldn't take any calls. And the television stations, the network were chasing her. She wouldn't return a single call. They're leaving message. This is amazing. We're looking for content. We're looking for news. This is amazing. Grandchild saves the life of 8 months later, the phone rings. It was a well-known life coach. She picks up the phone. And he says, that's amazing. Mrs. Schultz, I don't understand something. This is unbelievable. You save the life of your grandson. Why would you not? I mean, I would be putting this all over Facebook. Why wouldn't you pick up the phone? So she said something amazing that I think will set the tone for us this evening. She said a few days, as she lifted up the car, she realized this is my potential. Can you imagine? I could lift up a huge car. Can you imagine the last 63 years? How I've deviated from my potential. She said after she saved the life of her grandson, she went back into her house and she spiraled into depression because she started thinking about her life and thinking about how many times she's done things, she's been involved in things that have deviated from her potential. There is nothing more painful than realizing that you could have been there and you're not up there. How do we know that? The first Jew that sojourned the planet is Abraham. Abraham went through 10 tests. In the very final test was the binding of Isaac. As Abraham managed to be successful in the final test, which is test number 10, a heavenly voice comes out and said, Abraham, Abraham. Why twice? So the commentators tell us, what they were teaching us is that the Abraham down there had reached his potential up here. And they were in absolute parity. That's the goal why you're in this world. Because not a single person sitting in this room was sent to learn with Schultz is on the way to Israel to get a bronze medal. That's not why God bestowed on you the most powerful spiritual gift anyone can have, and that's a Jewish soul. What is the concept of Hell in Judaism? Purgatory. What's the concept? Hollywood has completely taken it out of. What's the concept of the so-called hell? So it's not this red devil and this heated. Here's what it is. In the next world, you're going to see a movie of your life. You're going to see a panoramic movie of your life, okay? It's not going to be sitting there with buttered popcorn and a Diet Coke. There are going to be some scenes in the movie where you're going to want to climb underneath the seat, okay? Because there are things done in all of our lives that we're a little bit embarrassed about. Here's the good news. By the way, when you see this movie, people who've left this world already and have met their demise before you are going to be sitting in that movie house. 1 second. Here's the good news. You can see the cut version or the uncut version. It's completely up to you. Okay, remember this unbelievable, just before you went to Israel, some South African parachuted in and told you the speech. Cut or uncut? How do you see the cut version? There's certain scenes in all of our lives that you want to redact, right? So if you sincerely regret certain things that you've done and said in your life, and you take it upon yourself that you'll never do those things again, and you're put in a similar situation, and in fact, you have the intestinal fortitude not to succumb to what you did before, it'll cut it out. That scene will not be in the very final, that is a gift that we are given. It's called tshuva, okay? So firstly, the concept of us being in this world to reach our potential, and secondly, just know along the way we're going to make a few mistakes, and when you recalculate, those scenes are up to you to redact. So in driving out tonight, I thought of what I believe are, in many, many years of public speaking, many years of involved in speaking to, I don't know, tens of thousands of different groups by now, I think the 5 main reasons why people don't reach their potential. Reason number 1 is that people don't know why they're here. Okay? Have you ever heard of a Fortune 500 company, a Fortune 50 company that doesn't have a mission statement? Google knows why they're in this world. And Microsoft knows why they're in this world. If I asked the average person, what's your mission statement? What would they say? Okay, and I've spoken to many, Jack knows, thousands of people in different continents. You stop the average person and say, why are you here? So if you stop the average Torah observant person, I'll say, Rabbi, the reason why I'm here is to do mitzvahs, to be close to God. That's great. That's great on a panoramic macro level, but why are you specifically here? What's your name?
Alon.
Alon.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you're here. What's your name?
Remy.
So Alon and Remy, you are here for completely different reasons. I don't know why this is, but for some reason, the education system doesn't place a tremendous premium on understanding what is your mission statement. So this evening, the one thing that I'm going to give you, because I believe this is one of the reasons why people don't reach their potential, I'm going to give you 3 different exercises, all tried and tested, all based on the wisdom of our sages and based on the Torah, that you can figure out why you're put in this world. Okay? So one, I'm going to obviously cut this down to bullets. So one is brought by one of the contemporary teachers that says there's 2 things, and I want you to think about this. By the way, anything I say tonight, I'm happy to email to Rabbi Jack so you can have this. First thing is, I want you to think about 5 of the most pleasurable moments in your life where you just were in the zone. A sunset at the Grand Canyon, playing a certain scene of music, when you were connected to someone, just think of those 5 things. That'll be very telling as to what your mission is in this world. And or, if I told you that I'm going to give you $1 billion and I'm going to add 6 hours a day to every single day. If you had no problem with money and you had all the time in the world, how would you spend that money? How would you spend that time? There's no right or wrong, just the absolute truth. Okay? Exercise number 2. And if you really do these things properly, I've done these for many, many people, I don't think it's foolproof, it's very, very, very close. There's a bunch of questions that I want you to go through, and again, I'm happy to email you guys. Here's some of the questions which, if you really answer honestly, it'll give you a good sense of why your unique soul was sent down into this world. Here's some of the questions. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? If you knew you couldn't fail in something in your life, what would you do? Number 2. What activity makes you feel the most alive? Number 3, what do you enjoy talking about the most? Okay, when you're schmoozing with people and you're networking, what do you like talking about? These are all signs of why you're put in this world, and nobody will have the same answer. One other question I want you to think about is, what's one thing that you've struggled with most of your life? If something keeps coming up again and again, there's a very strong indicator that that's a part of your soul that needs some kind of work, okay? That's series number 2. Exercise number 3. I want you to think of 3 Olympic circles, okay? Circle number 1, write down 5 activities or activities that you're very good at. Okay, this is not a time to be falsely humble. 5 things that you're good at. That's Olympic circle number 1. Olympic circle number 2. 5 things that you enjoy the most. So 5 things that you're good at is circle A. Circle B is 5 things that you really love doing. The third and final Olympic circle is things that you would like to do to make the world a better place. Where those 3 circles converge and overlap, that's your mission in this world. I've done this with thousands of people. It's insanely accurate. So we started saying, what are the things that are holding you back from reaching your potential? How important is potential? We see in the very first patriarch, Abraham, that when he managed to transcend and reach the 10th test, a heavenly voice came out and said his name twice. So obviously this concept of reaching your potential is very, very important. This evening we're going to go through 5 reasons that I think people fall short of the potential. Number 1 is not knowing why you're in this world. Number 2 is right here tonight, you're going to need to make a decision if you want to reach your potential. This is a very, very scary thought. You're going to have to decide whether you want to be great or be comfortable. It's binary. You cannot be both. Okay, we represent, for sure, the biggest influencer on YouTube by far. We represent some of the biggest names in the world. I can tell you, none of them got there by sleeping till 11 o'clock and eating chocolate pretzels on the couch and watching reruns of Jerry Seinfeld. We represent about 250 professional athletes, NBA, NFL. None of these people got to where they were or are without waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning doing insane things. We represent a number of people who are Olympic medallions. They all had to pay the price. Here's one of the things that I spoke about at my TED Talk. Unfortunately, pop culture has imparted the notion that pain is bad. Pain is not bad. Pain is the price that you're going to pay for greatness. Throughout your life, it's going to be a struggle. What you feel like and what you want. Okay, that's the struggle of life. What you feel like is your body. What you want is your soul. You want to be an Olympic swimmer, you're going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and hit that pool. The alarm clock goes off. What do you feel like doing? Whacking that snooze bottle, whacking the thing out of the window, right? But what do you want? You want greatness? The price that you're going to pay for greatness is pain. You will never, ever achieve anything that is worthwhile in this world without pain. The problem with, and I speak to mainly millennials or gens, the problem is when you've told that pain is bad, you'll do everything in the world to avoid pain. You'll drink, substance abuse, pornography. It's all about muting pain. And that's a guarantee of you being a sloth. One thing I can guarantee you that's not what God wants you to be. And no Jew, especially not you guys. I mean, how many people your age are sitting right now in a classroom without air conditioning? I'm kidding. Listening to, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. No, I'm totally kidding.
I was there too. I am.
Listening to the most unbelievable lecture ever. Okay, that you guys are the people that God is betting on. Okay, so the second reason why people don't reach their potential is they choose comfort over greatness. Let me give you a case in point. Does any of you know how a beautiful pearl, is made? Okay, so how's a pearl made? There's a certain fish-like substance in the ocean. Okay, what kind of fish-like?
A clam with a shell.
It's like an oyster, right? So here's what happens. This is the way God did it, which is unbelievable. When this oyster has a tiny piece of grit between its body, which is a hard cover, and its stomach, which is soft, it's very frustrating. It's going nuts, right? So what does it do? It drops to the bottom of the ocean. It expels its hard outer shell. And what it does is it creates a certain fluid is emitted, which circles around this little piece of grit, so it no longer has that friction. That piece of liquid, metastasizes and it becomes a pearl. That's how pearls are created, okay? So let's suppose at the time that this little piece of the grit is between this outer stomach and the hard shell, it smokes a joint, okay? Or has half a bottle of scotch and says everything's cool. Firstly, we'll have never any pearls in the world, and we'll have half of the ocean on the 12-step program. The point being that beautiful things like pearls. What about the most expensive minerals in the world? Diamonds. Do you know how a diamond? First, you have to dig deep. Okay, I'm from South Africa. I know a little bit about diamonds and gold. You have to dig deep, and you have to take the carbon to a heat of like 72,000 degrees Fahrenheit and take a clamp, which is, that's how, out of a tremendous amount of rough, a diamond comes out of the carbon. It's digging deep, and it's digging deep in each and every one of your lives. Things that lie dormant, things that would never ever be actualized. And what we sometimes feel is pain, what we sometimes think is recalculate, is the moments where you'll take the stumbling blocks and you'll make them into stepping stones. So point number 2 is, those of you who want to cruise and have a comfortable life, that's fine, but I guarantee you'll never reach your potential. Because that's not why God put you in this world. He's told us that every single person in this room is at the very least going to go through 10 tests in your life. And if you really think about it, you can try and figure this out. Great people are people that surmount those tests, that know they're not looking for comfort, they're looking for greatness. So point number 2 is making the decision that you're striving for greatness and not comfort. The third thing that keeps people back from reaching their potential is making excuses or having a victim mentality. Okay, I cannot tell you how many times I've spoken at different things and people come to the podium and say, Rabbi, this is all great, but if only. Okay, if only I was born to those parents, if only I had that. Okay, if you look at the word life, the middle 2 letters are if. If you look at a life in the Hebrew language, the middle 2 signs are the Almighty's name. If you have a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you have a connection to the being in this world that loves you more than you can fathom, there's always a rhyme, a reason, and a purpose. Here's the 2 things that I always hear. Rabbi, this sounds amazing. If only I was younger. Right? That's a very common if. So let me tell you a beautiful story. Maybe before your time, there used to be a column called Dear Abby. People used to write in, whatever, Dear Abby, here's my problem. So the truth is, Abigail van Vuren was the real Abby, was Abigail. She was a Jewish woman. Here's a classic example of how she responded, which is gorgeous. Someone wrote in and said, I'm 44 years old, 43 years old. I've always wanted to go to medical school, but it's going to take 7 years. Do you realize at 43 plus 7, I'll be 50 years? So listen to her answer, it's beautiful. She said back to dear writer, how old will you be in 7 years if you don't go to medical school? You're going to turn 50 anyway. Okay, when's the best time to plant an oak tree? Probably 20 years ago, 10 years ago. When's the second best time? Right now. So you start where you are, you do your best, and the idea of looking back and feeling sorry for yourself is one guarantee you will never reach your potential. Here's another thing, this is the if. If only I didn't mess up, Rabbi. If only people who live their life in the rear view mirror. So I'll tell you a true story. A few years ago, I spoke at a Passover at a program. A woman comes up to me at the podium afterwards, and she was going nuts, and he did this to me, and it was abuse, and I mean, this sounded like Johnny Depp on steroids, and it was this, and I couldn't get a word in. I was trying to I just waited for her to fester. At the end of this whole session, I realized what she was talking about was her ex-husband, who she divorced 21 years ago. Do you understand that she's been going through life with a handbrake up for 21 years? If you don't bury the past will bury you. So if you want to reach your potential, you have to know that you can't play a victim, and the idea of looking at if and playing that game is a guarantee that you will never reach your potential. Let me take the next point, and that is as follows. What about self-imposed barriers, self-sabotage? Okay, this is going to scare the living daylights out of you, because here are 11 questions. I'm not saying if you get at least 7 or 8 out of 11, you need to speak to me privately. Here's the test of whether you are a person who self-sabotages. The person who self-sabotages, if you get 11 out of 11, we're going to go right now to a padded cell. I'll give you some medication, you'll be fine. If you get about 6 or 7, we need to speak privately. Here are the 11 questions which some of the most leading psychiatrists have isolated as proof positive that you are self-sabotaging, which is one of the reasons that you won't reach your potential. 1, Number 1, avoiding people and situations that make you uncomfortable. Number 2, 1 for 1. Number 2, staying within your comfort zone and avoiding change. 2 for 2. Okay. This is turning into a 12-step program. Number 3 is setting goals that are too low, right, to ensure success. Number 4 is the fourth indicator of whether you're a person who self-sabotages, creating conflict with your romantic partners, your loved ones, friends. It's a subconscious way that you create a friction. Number 5, trying to control others. Number 6, attempting to gain other people's approval, spending your entire life trying to endear yourself to other people. Number 7, making excuses, a person who's a pathological person who makes excuses. Number 8, taking actions that don't match your values and goals. Number 9, comparing yourself to others. Number 10, social withdrawal or isolation. Number 11 is some risky behavior. It can be substance abuse, gambling, overspending, promiscuity, whatever. If you are 11 for 11, before you go to Israel, you need to speak to me. We'll talk about your medication. You'll be fine. The point being that there is another force in life that wants you not to succeed. You cannot have freedom of choice. You cannot achieve greatness if there's not some kind of a force in the air. You've got to be very careful not to listen to the voice that says you. The voice that says you Schmendrick, you this, that's usually not coming from a good place. There's a very famous book by Rabbi Dessler called Strive for Truth. When you hear the you can assume that it's coming from a sabotaging force. It's a dark force. When you hear the proverbial I, it's coming from a good force. If you think about it for a second, it resonates with a lot of people. So we started saying, how can you not reach your potential? We spoke about Mrs. Schultz, 63 years old, lifted a car, and she started feeling, oh my gosh, if I can lift a car, can you imagine what else I could have done? Then we said the first the first patriarch, Abraham, heard a heavenly call. Abraham. It obviously is vitally important that what your potential is and your life needs to be in parity. We gave examples of what are the examples of things that cause people not to reach their potential. Lack of self-knowledge, no mission, no clue who I am. You'll be going very fast, but you have no idea what the destination is. Number 2, we said, if you are committed to a life of comfort and at all costs, you will never reach greatness. We said comfort and greatness are binary. Number 3, we said if you are continually playing victim or making excuses, chances are you'll never reach your potential. And number 4, if you are a person who self-sabotages, the last of the 5, and then I'm going to give you rules that will change your life before the standing ovation and question and answers. The last is your attitude. Nothing positive comes out of a negative attitude. So what's the concept of positive thinking in Judaism? I get asked this question very often. The secret, the law of attraction, is that a Jewish concept? Does anyone know what the whole concept of the law of attraction is? The whole concept of the law of attraction was written by this Australian woman. The book is called The Secret, bestseller. She said, if you have whatever your predominant thought is like a magnet, and you can make things happen. Do you think that that's a Jewish concept or a Torah? Very good. Who said no? It's not. Why? You said yes or no? No. It's great. Whatever you said is right. So I tell you how it works. Why?
Because there are things that are out of your control and you have to be okay with that.
Good. Do you think that you know what's absolutely right for you? Or do you think that God might have a better insight than you that what's in your best interest?
I don't think everyone has 100% what is the best for them, because then they wouldn't change in life. But I don't know how you would get into a control and ask God. It's like nobody knows a clear answer anyways.
Okay, so we'll come to that. It's a very good point. Okay, very quickly, the concept of positive thinking, there definitely is some truth to the fact of positive thinking and the power of your thoughts. The one Torah concept which we if you look at the story of the greatest person that's ever sojourned the planet, Moses, is that when he killed an Egyptian, it says in the Torah that he became frightened. There's not a single word in the Torah that's redundant. Why would the Torah need to tell us his emotion? And then a little bit further on, we learn that Paro, who was the leader of Egypt, had got wind of the fact that somehow he had brought someone to their demise. Not for now, we can take it maybe in the questions, but your thought process is very important. If you are living in a world of fear internally, you can have a mind of weeds. There's no such thing as a mind that's empty. if there's nothing in your mind, it's going to attract negative things. So which is one of the reasons why the concept of positive mantras, the concept of thinking about good things, there's a lot of truth to that. Okay, before I summarize, which I believe are the 10 lessons I would like to give each and every one of you before you ascend up the steps before you go to Israel. And these are things that I'm going to email to you, and I want you to put this on your fridge and on your forehead. We said that it's vitally important to reach your potential, that none of us will be satisfied in life if we are a C- or a bronze. We said there are 5 things that could cause us not to reach our potential. Here are the 10 things in all my years of speaking that I'd like to summarize this evening that I want you to think about that you need to let go of in order to be the greatest person that you can ever be. That you need to let go of in order to reach your potential. Point number 1. You need to let go of the opinions of others controlling your life. What other people think of you is none of your business. Okay, you guys grew up in the hardest generation because social media is all about reacting to likes and smikes and schmikes. What other people think of you is none of your business. Number 2, you need to let go of the shame of past failures. Again, you need to let go. If you want to reach your potential, you need to let go of the shame of the past failures. Let me give you an example of some people who failed. Maybe you people have heard of a cartoonist. A cartoonist who was so poor that he tried to get a job in various newspapers. One after the other, the newspapers said, zero talent. Eventually, he went to the priest of his church and he says, I'm completely financially indigent. I don't even have a roof over my head. The pastor said, we've got a farm barn if you want to sleep in the farm barn. The person went to the farm barn on a heap of hay, a straw. That evening, a little mouse came out of the corner. He jotted down that mouse. Today, you know that mouse as Mickey Mouse and that cartoonist as Walt Disney. Or perhaps you know a person who grew up in Europe who at the age of 4 couldn't speak, and at the age of 7 couldn't write. At the age of 12 was expelled from elementary school and was told, you are slightly retarded, do not continue to pursue anything in academia. Today we know him as Albert Einstein. And perhaps you might know a woman who grew up in the South who was the subject of terrible, terrible molestation, emotional, physical, and she dreamt of being a talk show host, and she went for an audition and was told, quote unquote, get off the stage, get that out of your head, you have absolutely no clue. And today you might know her as Oprah Winfrey. The idea of people holding on to their failures is the difference between whether these people could have been who they are. There's a concept in Proverbs in Judaism that a person falls 7 times. It's not despite the fact that they fall, they reach again. It's because of that. It's because of that. Because every single person in this room, life will break you at some point, but you're the strongest in the broken parts. And that's the difference between greatness and at best mediocrity, is that a person can take their failures and move on. Number 3, things that you need to let go of in order to reach your potential is being indecisive about what you want. So the road of life, my friends, is filled with flat squirrels that couldn't make a decision. Being indecisive, just look at that vision, right? That idea of should I go left or right, and you reach a point of analysis paralysis, you will never reach your potential. Number 4, procrastinating on the goals that matter to you. Okay? If you sit and you keep kicking the can down the road, guaranteed you will never reach your potential. Number 5 is choosing to do nothing. God created the world with a thing called spiritual gravity. If you do nothing, perforce, you're going one way. Okay? Point number 6 that you need to let go of in order to reach your potential is the idea of being right. This is the most important lesson I always tell people who are about to get married. You have a decision to make. Either you can be right, or you can be married, or you can have shalom. If you insist on being right, that's great. You'll be right, but you'll be single for a long time. Why? When you walked in here this evening, there's a little thing on the doorpost called a mezuzah. Did you notice the direction or the angle of that mezuzah? So here's what it says in Jewish law. There's one major school of thought that says it has to be horizontal. There's another that says it has to be vertical. When you walked in, it was 45 degrees. What does that teach you? You've got to meet the person halfway, and that's the first thing you kiss when you enter a Jewish home. It's to teach you we're not here to be right. We're here to look for peace. Number 7. You want to reach your potential, you've got to stop running from problems that should be fixed. Make the hardest phone call first, do the hardest thing at the beginning of the day. Otherwise, you'll keep kicking it down, and before you know it, it'll be August 2027, and you haven't done it. So running from problems that should be fixed, guaranteed you will never reach your potential. Point number 8, to ensure that you reach your potential in this journey called life, is you need to stop making excuses and rather make decisions. Great people don't make excuses. Before I left yeshiva in Israel, here's the guys that were ready to get married. Here's what the Rosh Yeshiva, the dean of the yeshiva, made us do. Okay? He made us stand in front of mirror, it sounds weird, and say the following: "You're right, I'm wrong, I'm sorry." Before we're going to get married. It was like spiritual aerobics. You're right, I'm wrong. What's the hardest thing for a person to say?
I'm sorry.
It's very hard to say, I'm wrong and I'm sorry. So you look at all of the research. America didn't, what do you think the American population hated more? The fact that there was some kind of moral impropriety by the former President Clinton, or the fact that he lied?
That he lied.
Sorry?
That he lied.
Very good. Because if you would have manned up and said, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake," people at least would give him a little bit of rope. The fact that you lie, you're up the creek without a yarmulke. Number 9, you need to, in order to reach your potential, you need to stop overlooking the positive points that are in your life. Let me tell you the positive points that are in your life. So Rabbi Jack will tell you that I did some research which has been published in many languages which talks about the demographics and the population of the Jews. There's about 8.7 billion people in the world. Out of those 8.7 billion people, 0.02% are of the Jewish faith. And of the 0.02, at best 10% have got any sense of meaning, purpose of why we're here. You are sitting in a classroom on a Thursday evening in a beautiful house without air conditioning. Do you understand that life is rough and every one of you are the diamonds in the rough? You understand that you people are the people that God is betting on to carry the flame to the next generation. Every single one of you are literally diamonds, okay? So the idea that you should overlook the incredible situation, just think of the whole series of events that landed you here this evening to eat incredible pizza and hear a beautiful lecture. There's a Talmud, there's a certain tractate that says every person that was here was handpicked. The Almighty doesn't handpick junk. Every one of you is gold. Number 10, the last thing that you need to let go of in order to reach your potential is not appreciating the present moment. So I had a workshop on social media. It's very, very difficult for people to be in the moment. Okay? I'm going to give you an emotion. You tell me if it's past or future. Guilt. Very good. Fear. Usually future, okay? How many people are right here completely listening to this amazing lecture, as opposed to thinking, "I wish there was air conditioning"? What do you... I had to do it one more time. One more... I'm dying. I'm literally dying. No, but it's beautiful. No, it's good. It's good to be back in Africa. I'm loving this. No, we're back in Africa. No, I'm good. Okay. So I'm going to end with a story, and then we're going to take questions. I'm going to end with a story because we said every single one of us by now realizes that we're here to reach our purpose, and there are certain things that are preventing us from reaching our purpose. You're going to say, "Rabbi, what ultimately is our purpose?" So here's my passing shot and a little story. A high school reunion. 30 years after high school, some dance floor. And a guy looks at the other side of the hall, and he sees this woman. Obviously, this is years later, and he's just very attracted to the way she carries herself. She's very erudite. She's very aristocratic. He goes to the principal of the school and says, "Do you mind if I ask you, to get that woman's number? It's been a long time." And he said, "No problem, but I just need to tell you that I know it's been a while, Larry. But the woman whose number you want me to get is Jennifer. Happy to get the number for you, but she's blind. I just wanted to point that out." He said, I can see that she's a beautiful person. Jennifer gets number from Jennifer. Larry calls up Jennifer. Boom, date, one thing leads to another. Engagement, boom, married. They start their life together in New York. And Larry is an unbelievably selfless, altruistic, benevolent, beautiful person, and he's in such pain to see the love of his life, not able to see a sunset, not able to see the beautiful flowers in New York, not able to see the beautiful different colors of the fruit, and he starts doing research, and he finds out that at the Cleveland Clinic, there's a special operation called a retina implant, and if you have a retina implant, and if it's successful, immediately you can see. He comes back to Brooklyn, and he says to his wife, he says, Jen, you're not going to believe it. I did research, the Cleveland Clinic, there's a retina implant. If it's successful, boom. And she gives this huge smile. And then he has to say the second part, and he said, but there's an 18-year wait. And he sees a tear well up in her eye, and he can't handle it because he adores and loves his wife. The next day he comes home, Jen, you're not going to believe it. We leapfrogged over 18 years. We're next. Pack your bags. We're going to Cleveland. He packs the bags, going to Cleveland. And Larry says to Jennifer, I need you to know one thing. If this is a successful operation, in the post-op room, as they remove the bandages, it doesn't take minutes, milliseconds, you'll be able to see right away. If it's successful, first time you open, but I need you to tell you something, that because I don't want you to be upset or I don't want you to be shocked, when you open your eyes, you're going to see a man with dark glasses and a white stick, because I'm also blind. They get their stuff in the car, Cleveland, downstairs, they go into the post-op room, they have the operation, and after the bandage comes off, Jennifer opens her eyes, and she can see. They get an usher, they go down to the taxi, back to New York, weeks go into months, and Jennifer wants to see the world. She wants to see a sunset in Jerusalem. She wants to see the Eiffel Tower, and poor Larry is like a ball on a chain, and she's going sugar, she's going nuts here. Eventually she comes home one day and she says, Larry, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. You're the most unbelievable person, but I just can't carry on like this. We've got to get divorced. Larry says, I love you. If that's going to make you happy, that's not a problem. He calls his brother to pick him up. And just before he leaves the Brooklyn home, he says to his soon-to-be future ex-wife, Jennifer, I wrote a note, and it's on the pillow in the master bedroom. Click. His brother carries him out. Janet goes upstairs, and she, true to Larry's representation, looks at the pillow. There's an envelope. Here's the letter from Larry to Jennifer. My darling Jennifer, I love you more than words can say. I want you to be happy. I want your most beautiful life. I have one request, and one request only. Look after those eyes. Because, my darling Jennifer, they were my eyes. And before every single one of you is sent down to this world, God takes some of himself, so to speak, and blows it into each and every one of you, a Jewish soul. And he says one thing, look after that soul. And that's your mission in this world. And there's distractions, and there are things out there that are screaming your name. And he says, look after that soul. Because your soul is one of a small percentage of people that has been chosen to be the benchmark of morality, to be a light unto the nations. I ask you to look after your soul. You're about, in the days ahead, to take a lot of the learning that you've been through. You're about to enter a plane, and you're about to land at the holiest country in the world. I'm not here to tell you what to do, what not to do. But I look back at my life, and I look back at when I was your age, and I can tell you, if you Google me, you'll see, we definitely manage some of the most famous people on the planet. I promise you they would rather be here tonight. These are people that are household names, I don't wish this on anyone, obviously, but they're unhappy, living dysfunctional lives. There's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's a fragmented family. You're about to start your journey called life. You have an incredible, incredible mentor, rabbi and teacher in Rabbi Jack and his beloved wife. You've been given something that so few people have been given. I am telling you this not because I have any agenda. When I walked out of Harvard Law School in 1990 and I went back to Harvard Business School, I walked out of the so-called greatest Ivy League school. I learned zero wisdom there. No wisdom. Zero. Okay? The wisdom that has been imparted to you up until now is the instructions for living. How do you have a successful relationship? How do you overcome adversity? I cannot tell you how fortunate you are. Each and every one of you has been handpicked. I wish for each and every one of you that you reach your potential, that you go for gold, have an unbelievable time in Israel, and I wish for you only a life of health and happiness. Thank you for listening. I'll take any questions before I completely pass out from heat stroke.
Can we all move like 10 feet back?
I don't know what happened. No, it's great. I feel like I'm back in Africa. This is great. Can you photo op out the perspiration, Rabbi Jack? I'm dying here. I feel like I'm Michael Phelps swimming. So you want to look at my English name? Anthony. You can look at my podcast. Look at, without an H. So you'll see some of my clients. I mean, I'm not allowed to. Yeah. So you'll obviously see, if you look at my name, you'll see we represent the biggest YouTube influence in the world. We represent a lot of people. The Anthony Gordon Show. No, not the football. Look at the same one. You can look at my name and you just type my name and type Ben Shapiro. They'll come up.
Anthony with no H. The Anthony Gordon.
Yes. Or you can look under, I mean, whatever. You'll see there's a lot of... so a lot of those people...
For life, I did not learn in Harvard.
That's right. By the way, Spotify told me to add that tagline. Oh, this is... Now you find it.
Yeah, I told you.
I should have just stood... should we start again? I'm starting again. But that's something that you shouldn't necessarily tell the world. How do you know?
I watch his YouTube.
Oh, but how did you know he's my client?
I'm on your LinkedIn.
Okay. I'm starting again, yeah. Well, good evening, welcome. He's a very interesting guy, by the way. The head of his philanthropy is a South African guy. I've spent a lot of time with him. I asked him once, you're not recording this, are you? No. So I said to him, I don't say what they want to hear, I'll tell them the truth, right? So I said, Jimmy, let's look at the situation. You're not necessarily the best looking guy I've ever met, right? You're not necessarily the most talented guy I've ever met. So where I come from, he obviously knows me. I'm an Orthodox Jew, so I don't believe in coincidence, right?
Okay.
So what I said to him, I said, from where I'm coming from, for whatever, God chose you to be the biggest YouTuber in the world, right? And he got it. He said, yeah. Unfortunately, he grew up as a religious Christian, but it was rammed down his throat. So he's like rebelling against it. But I break his stereotype. Like he sees me with the yarmulke making jokes and he can't figure this thing out. So he said, yes, I get that. I said, Jimmy, here's the deal. You have 225 million people following you, and it's just one of your platforms. So I think you have a responsibility. I said, what do you mean? I said, after 120 years, one thing, I don't want to burst your bubble, but you're not going to live forever. When you meet your maker, he's giving you a lot of breaks in this world, right? You have millions of millennials that look up to you. It's got to be more than throwing cars out of helicopters. It's got to be teaching people in a very subtle way. I'm not making you, don't turn into some geek, but it's got to be cool to be honest. It's got to be cool to give back. That's where he started all his philanthropy.
That's why he started?
It's one of the reasons. No, but he's a genuine guy.
He is.
He's a very genuine guy. He's a very genuine guy. He doesn't care about money. I'm serious. He doesn't.
I heard he puts all his money from previous videos.
He does.
He has no money.
He just went back to South Africa, filmed something, cost $550,000 for the video. It's $500,000. At the end of the video, he said, nah, it's not going to work. He just chucked it out. $500,000. He's got an insane sense of what's going to hit and what's not. I've been there like through the night watching, how he's made virality into a science.
Going viral.
He knows, I know. You've got to understand, he's got a whole bunch of guys. I've sat there for hours and hours till 3 in the morning. They study the algorithm like it's insane. They know when to release it, they know how to release it, they know, it's insane. But it's very important that you see over the next few months, you'll see his content, it's going to change a little bit. I don't know if you're watching, but you'll see.
Mr. Beast.
Now you'll see, it's going to be very cool. Where did you see that, on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
How did you get that so quickly?
I followed you. I Googled you.
Oh, wow.
Came up.
Okay. Everything was amazing. I've never had such a beautiful sauna in my life.
You're still like 2 feet away.
Standing ovation for sure.
What's that? Beautiful. Good, fantastic group. Beautiful people. Free pizza. So I'll take any questions. Who needs a sauna when you've got your... Yes, ma'am.
Nice question. So you listed the 10 things at the end, and I think they're very appropriate and practical.
But?
Obviously it's easier said than done. So
Okay,
it's
so let me-
not an excuse. But then what, I guess the first step, I guess, is recognizing like which one you're doing and which one you're
But you're saying something else which is very amazing. The most successful self-help book was called The Road Less Traveled. What's the opening line of that book? And it was a whole paradigm shift. Life is tough.
Yeah.
We represent some of the biggest names in Hollywood, and Hollywood tells it's the biggest disservice because life is tough, and it's supposed to be. How in heaven's name do you have muscles like Rabbi Jack without being in the gym, right? No pain, no gain. That's life. That's it. And if it was, so let me ask you something else. I want to ask you something else. Who do you think's got more of a chance, and I can say this from our clients firsthand, who's got more of a chance of being a juvenile delinquent, okay? The child of a billionaire who's handed a trust of $100 million, or someone who really has to work for their dollars and has a break? Who do you think has got a... Is what?
More like the individual.
Why? You're 100% right, but why? No morals, does he have to...
No struggle.
Too much time on his hands?
Too much, both of you, okay, you hit this big thing. Too much time. One of the most dangerous things our sages say is when a person is idle and bored. It's a terrible, terrible thing. That's why, by the way, there's no word in the whole Torah called retirement.
Spend 1 week.
It doesn't work.
I'm like,
You're going out of your mind, right? People tell me, Rabbi, just put me in Hawaii with a pina colada, and after 48 hours, you are going out of your mind. Because that's not what we're not supposed to be animals. The other thing is, if you handed something, you don't have any sense of value, which is one of the reasons on Friday night, if you ever see people cut challah, you're not supposed to hand challah to somebody. You're supposed to put it on the table. Why? Because no one's supposed to get a handout. That's bread of shame. And I can tell you, one of the things that we're working with a very big basketball player, who you would also figure out, is an ex-basketball player. You saw the headlines when someone interviewed Shaq, and he said his kid said, "We're rich," and he said, "No, I'm rich." But it's a very, what he's doing is not because he doesn't love his children, it's the biggest service to his kid. I've seen kids who are given a trust of $100 million completely demotivated, they have no self-esteem. It's a little silver spoon. That's why God puts these little things in your life so that you'll have to dig deep. I always tell the story of a very, very, very wealthy person. Every single summer he took his wife to the most exotic places. One year to Mala, whatever, this hotel's floating in the air. The next year, they went to this most ridiculous place, like it's a six-star hotel in India. One year, his wife wasn't feeling so great, so they stayed in New York. And they went on the Hudson River one day on one of these ferries. And lo and behold, they walked up to the deck one day, and they saw an old lady looking out, over the ferry. And they hit a wave, and they saw this old lady do a somersault and fall into the Hudson. The guy jumped over, true story, and he saved this woman's life. When he looked back in his life, which summer vacation was etched in his life forever? Mala, Mali, Shmali, or this little local? Why?
May change someone's life.
Because exactly, it's if you're doing something and you're making a difference and it's purposeful, that will leave an indelible impression in your mind's eye. It's a terrible, terrible thing that when you get the message that we're here to shortcuts, we're here to we aren't here for mediocrity. If you want to fulfill your purpose, it's going to take work, and there's nothing like knowing that you put your heart and soul into something and you achieve something. But at your age, the most important thing, and that's why I want to give this little, these like Olympic things, figure out why you're here. Figure out why you're here, because one of the most scariest things is that most people ascend up a ladder and they're 50 years old and they realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. Because I listen to other people. My parents said I should go to medical school. You got to take time, and the best time is now when you're in Israel, between falafels. You got to think these things through and figure out, why am I here? God isn't playing games. He's giving you unique gifts and tools. Have you ever seen a carpenter looking in a doctor's bag for a stethoscope? Or a doctor looking for a chisel? You've got exactly the tools that you need to fulfill your mission. You have to just figure out what you've been given. Did you choose your parents? You don't choose your parents, you choose the color of your eyes, your IQ. All of those things are telling you why you're here. It's terrible, terrible, terrible that I see people in pain because they're looking at curated Instagram sites of a person who's completely got nothing, but they rented a car to try and impress people. Be who you are. Think what you've been given. There's not a single thing that you don't have to fulfill your goal. And I can tell you right now, and I'm not just saying this, you guys have got an unbelievable start to life. What's the average age, Rabbi Jack, of people here? How old? Okay, I can tell you right now, and these guys know I travel like a Meshuggah. Okay, so most people your age, I just came back from London to do this TED Talk. Most people your age are walking around like zombies. They're not having these kind of discussions. You are miles ahead of the pack. No, I'm saying it not so it's for you guys to like me. I'm saying it because it's an observation of life, and I see both sides of this thing. And you're blessed. You've got great teachers. You've got the most unbelievable opportunity. You're going to... How many Jewish people... It's very interesting. On Friday, the Gallup poll just came out. And in the history of the United States... I should send you this article. In the history of the United States, there's never been more people that don't believe in God. Now, do you think that's a good thing? That don't believe in God. Just came out on Friday.
This is the most a lot of people do.
Yeah.
It's got, okay, now, but he has this, he's going to get worse. They're taking God out of the equation. There's a direct correlation between secularizing America, taking God out, and moral degradation, and spiking of teenage suicides. So why does that happen? When things go wrong, and you have no sense of accountability, you've got no sense of connecting to something above you, it's a very scary thing. I'll tell you one last story before I sweat myself out. I love you. I'll tell you one quick... I'm good. I'm totally good.
We're literally...
I want one picture of me without sweating, that's it. So my kids are amazing. My son went on a school trip to San Francisco, right? Says the Golden Gate Bridge. Now, this is a fact. I'm not a joke. It's a dead serious thing. There's two people full-time. Their full-time job at the Golden Gate Bridge is to walk up and down to make sure people don't jump off.
Oh my God.
Full-time job. 100% true. It's the number one suicide place in America. So my son is a little bit of an extrovert. I don't know where he gets it from. He went up to the guy who's like, I don't know what he's got. He's on his T-shirt, don't commit suicide, whatever. He said, there's a lot of people who jump off this bridge and they don't kill themselves, right? So what happens to those people? When you speak to them, right? It's freezing cold. There's a guy's worked there for years. So only my son could ask this. He said, when you speak to them, is there like a common theme? Like, why would someone do this? No, he wasn't on camera. Obviously what he said was true. He said, almost every single person that I jump in and save forever. And why did you do this? There's no purpose, there's no meaning.
In life. Like they just think of life.
If you're a hamster on a treadmill, that's the gift you've been given. That there's an instruction for living, and there's somebody who's rooting for you, and there's a rhyme and reason for everything. That puts you in the 1% decile, unfortunately, because most of the world thinks it's about Disneyland and Kim Kardashian. There's more to life than that. Keeping it up with Ashlet. Guys,
If you don't believe in God,
say again?
if you don't believe in God, then you kind of to a whole other.
Okay, I want to tell you one last thing. Jack, listen to this. Jack, Rabbi Jack, this is my last thing before I sweat out of here. Who's the most famous atheist in America right now? I'll give you a clue. He comes from the same country as me. Elon Musk. Very good. So Elon Musk said, no. So I will not tell your class to watch movies except one documentary you should see on the plane on Netflix. It's called The Whole Story About SpaceX, right? He said publicly, I don't believe in G-D, right? I don't know if you know the story before Tesla, about SpaceX. He put everything, he was one of the guys in PayPal, he made $100 million. He put everything on Black 13. He put everything on this rocket company. So the way it worked is that it was there was 3 rockets he blew up. This is his last chance. If this rocket didn't work, forget being on the Forbes list. He couldn't afford the Forbes magazine, right? And they're filming him. And you see the moment when it releases and he knew that it was successful. And the camera's going and he says, "Oh my G-D." This is so what's the moral of the story? Deep inside, every single person knows this is not one big accident. Guys, you're amazing. I'm going to go to the next gig. Thank you.